sa Pilipinas. Ito po ang ating katipunan. Muling sumasa inyo mga tagapakinig upang magbigay ng mahalagang impormasyon, magbigay liwanag at higit sa lahat makinig sa inyong mga daing at kuro-kuro hinggil sa mga problemang patuloy na nagpapahirap sa ating kalagayan at kabuhayan. Sa susunod na 2 oras, sisikapin po namin ipaliwanag ang iba-ibang bahagi ng ating ekonomiya at ang mga mabibigat pang local and international issues na may malaking epekto sa ating buhay at kinabukasan. Ito po ang inyong katipon na si Butch Valdes, kasama ang iba pa natin mga katipon dito mula sa Save the Nation Movement. Andito po si Valdes, ang aking pong co-host. Nandiyan din si Cathy, Cruz, isa rin co-host. Si Vera Archibido. Kami po dito sa Save the Nation Movement, Philippine LaRouche Society, at Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino ay nag-aanyaya po sa inyo na makibahagi sa ating talakayan sa pagsusuri ng mga kasalukuyang problema at paghanap ng kaukulang solusyon. Well, andito na naman po tayo. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. At magandang gabi din sa iyo, Johnny Mendoza. Palagay ko sila, yung mga iba pa nating kasama, darating na rin siguro. No? Andito dyan ang aking mga kaibigan. Inimbita ko sila Gary Salcedo. Hindi ko alam kung nakapasok na sila. Si Cathy, late. Hindi ko alam kung ano yung the reason na uhuli siya. Baka na traffic at siguro naghahanap buhay din. No? Okay, good. We have Jeffrey Balsac joining us also. And Valdes just checked in. No? Okay, what we will do, well, current events natin, I came across a news item that maybe it's not being carried by the mainstream media, pero may ruling ang Supreme Court denying the submission of the claims of the Maynilad and then what's this Manila Water at meron pang iba, 2 o 3 pang mga water companies claiming that they had not overcharged. No? The Supreme Court had ruled that they in fact have charged higher than they should have. No? And this is already a reiteration of the decision made prior, wherein they were asked by the Supreme Court to pay back to the consumers $2 billion pesos. There has been some sort of an adjustment of 900 million down to 900 million pesos per company. But nevertheless, I don't know too much about the details. They cited a particular Republic Act, the Supreme Court did, and with finality, here is a situation where the Supreme Court had actually come out with the decision that indeed the water companies owned by the oligarchs and managed by the oligarchs have been stealing from the Filipino people. I say stealing because it is impossible that they don't know what they were doing. They overcharge, they hit us with as much as they can, and they know that it is very difficult to file cases in the courts and for each to even reach the Supreme Court. Ang mayayaman silang nakakabayad ng mga magaling na lawyers, hindi lang yon. Kaya din bayaran yung mga regional trial court. As a matter of fact, kaya din nilang bayaran yung mga Supreme Court. Pero siguro, pag sobra na talaga, garapal na, hindi na siguro kakayanin ng Supreme Court talikurin ang kanilang mandato. At ito po ang nangyari. It was a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court to make these water companies pay back to the people. I don't know exactly how the payback is going to be made. Payback to the people, something like 2 billion pesos initially. From what I understand before, when this was being taken up by Digong, wherein he said that the mother of all corruption starts with these oligarchs, we were making an accounting of how much they have overcharged us to supposedly for them to put up the sewerage system of Metro Manila, which they didn't, and they have been overcharging us for 20 years. And we were talking about this minimum of 20 billion to 30 billion pesos that they need to pay back the Filipino people. Because this is how much we were paying. We were paying an extra amount, supposedly, for the construction of a sewerage system, which we need badly, no? But they didn't. Alam niyo ng mga oligarchs, no? Sino to mga ito? Well, ito sa mga Maynila, yan, sila Ayala, mga Ayala, sila Pangilinan, no? Sino pa ba? Sila Consunhi at meron pa mga ibang mga oligarko kasama dyan. Yun na isa, yung kasama sa sa gambling casinos.
Razon.
Ano ba
Razon.
Yan, Razon. Yan. Thank you, Jan. Okay, so yan po ang isang maybe good news. The bad news is the ongoing difficulties that we have been having. You see, the way I see it, the more difficulties our new president has been getting, these difficulties that he has somehow affect us, making our lives more difficult as well. The credibility of the president is also being tested, and there are internal strifes, it seems, that involve different factions in his administration, consisting of very powerful and influential people very close to the president that are doing a tug-of-war of cabinet secretaries being appointed. The other thing that we heard yesterday is that the president seems to want to do it his own way and does not want to hear, or no longer wants to hear, the idea that his father had many beautiful projects and had a very inspiring vision for the country. Now he wants to be able to create his own and not be compared with his father. That's going to be very difficult, Mr. President, because many of us feel that you became president because of your father. I, for one, I was hoping that I voted for you in the hope that you will continue the legacy that your father had left and finish the programs that he has laid out for the development of our country to make sure that we are a producer economy and not be a service economy the way these econoquacks of the past administrations have transformed our country to be. So anyway, these are just my opening comments, and I would like to invite everybody to join me for anything in case you want to adapt to what I'm saying. So andito na si Cathy. Ewan ko, bagong ligo ka ba, Cathy? Baka na nakudi ka.
Magandang gabi, Professor Butch. At syempre sa lahat po ng mga kasama natin sa Zoom at yung ating mga masugid na taga-subaybay po ng ating Katipunan na nakikinig sa pamagitan po ng radyo. Magandang gabi po sa lahat po ng ating mga kababayan sa iba't ibang panig po ng mundo at mga tumutunghay po dito sa ating mga social media accounts sa ating partido KBP po. Magandang araw po. Pasensya na po, nahuli.
Okay. Yeah, Itos, you want to give your greetings? Wala na si Itos.
Opo. Si Geoffrey Valdes, sir.
Greetings ka na, Itos.
Yeah, hello sa lahat ng nag-a-attend tonight, sa lahat ng mga tagapakinig natin from mga Ating Katipunan. Good evening po sa inyo lahat.
Okay, our good friend Geoffrey Valdes. Magandang gabi sa iyo, Geoffrey. You're still in the States or here in the Philippines already? In Australia.
Walang audio.
There's something wrong with the audio.
Okay, now, okay. Good evening. Magandang gabi sa lahat. I'm still in Sydney.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm still in Sydney. You gave a very good opening talk on the way utilities are handled by cartels.
Yes.
Now, back about more than 20 years ago, we were talking about the same problems. Overbilling, overcharging by the water utilities, by the electric distributors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I actually was giving them a way out, which they ignored. And the way out was, I acknowledge that it would be a huge strain on their financial resources if they were to pay the subscribers in cash, right?
Right.
What I was saying, what I was suggesting was that what was payable to the consumers should be shares in the company. That way, there will be no, there will hardly be any financial strain on the company. But the good thing about it is, if they were to issue shares to the subscribers and it would be put in the custody of SSS, yet assigned to the subscribers' names, SSS would and GSIS would have increased its contributions without having to raise premiums.
Right.
And that way also, the public interest of in these utilities would have been better protected have there been a strong consumer representation on the board.
Yeah.
And that would be the way out, including, and we can use this strategy not just in water, but also in electricity. I think that's the policy direction we should take. We should propose to the new president.
Mm.
If he wants to do something better than his dad, this is one thing he could do.
Yes, well, that sounds like a good suggestion, Terry. As long as the basic principles are met, no? Basically, if you convert all of these public utilities into socialized equity structure, wherein the consumers themselves are the equity holders. There was a time Meralco was like that. No? We were formed in
PLDT.
Yeah. And maybe but at that time, the oligarchs were not in position. No? As a matter of fact, you're correct in the sense that the Lopezes were taken out of Meralco, no? And replaced by the foundation, which was running the socialized equity structure of Meralco. All of us consumers were holding coupon ownership.
We were all, the consumers, I understand, are holding preferred shares, not voting, which was really a problem. Now, and at the same time, we've got problems in the SSS and GSIS as with regard to its responsiveness, and it's also difficult to simply raise the premiums. So the best way is to look for other sources of capital infusion from elsewhere.
Yeah. Well,
and this is the perfect opportunity.
Tama ka naman. I agree with you, Jeff, in the sense that the direction, there are many ways of skinning the cat, but first you have to decide that you will skin the cat. First you have to decide that you will dismantle the oligarchic hold on public utilities.
Yes.
How to do it efficiently, how to do it in a way that we can continue and will have maximum benefit to the public, we'll come up with solutions, as you had now being presented by you, Jeff. No? But first, this president has to make a decision. His father never allowed oligarchic hold on public utilities. When the Lopezes were intending to do that for electricity, well, it didn't take long for them to be taken out. And then it was not them. It was not Marcos who actually directly took out the Lopezes. The conditions at the time that the Lopezes had to withdraw was because the exchange rate as imposed on us by the IMF,
they had to go floating rate, right?
Floating rate from 4 pesos to 1, it became 8 pesos to 1. So all of a sudden, the existing foreign debt of the Lopezes doubled. So immediately they asked they requested Marcos to allow them to double their electricity rates. For which case Marcos did not want to allow because there was a law that limited them to 12% return on investment. No? And then when Marcos said we cannot allow you because the law is like that, then they voluntarily offered Meralco back to the government. Some people are misled thinking that Marcos grabbed this. As a matter of fact, no, he didn't. No. Now, but these are details thing that what I am sad, Jeffrey, is our present president. No? He sounds like his father. He enunciates words like his father. But the substance is completely different from what his father has been trying to do.
The times are different as well. Remember that his father was a strong man. Let's not be shy about it. He took too much. He took so much responsibility. But this time we are in an era where we voted. Where the Filipino people, I did vote, voted for a majority president.
Yeah.
And so if President Marcos wants to do these reforms, he has the mandate and he also has support. All he has to do is tell the people, you voted me, support me, because it's also going to benefit you, as I've demonstrated in our discussion.
Yeah.
It's about we can wipe out poverty within one presidential term. That's what I believe. And I think that's how ambitious we must become.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely possible. All you have to do is change your economic policy. No. If we continue this economic policy, which insists that we should stay as a service economy and forget about being productive, production and so on and so forth, then we're not going to go anywhere but down.
Our problem with production as well, Butch, is our supply chain from the farmer to our consumers, to the consumers, is also managed by cartels.
Well, yeah.
And when you apply cartel behavior in a supply chain, you naturally suppress productivity and production.
Well,
it's a natural consequence.
Well, the existence of cartels will be there, but how you're going to manage it in such a way that you will be able to survive them? Another. For example, our farming sector is controlled by let's say our having to import fertilizer. Okay, fertilizer. We are major importers of fertilizer, so this affects our farming sector. If you've got a economic program that will gear your resources towards production of fertilizer, your dependence on the cartel will be less and less. We don't know exactly how, but it has been done by India, it is being done by Vietnam, it's being done by other countries that are successful in this. Now, the other thing, where do you get your resources? Your resources should be taken from the oligarchs who are pocketing tremendous profits coming from the public utilities sector.
Yeah, it's all interrelated. I agree.
They're bleeding us. Now, if you can get these oligarchs to move towards these industries like fertilizer, pharmaceuticals, smelting plants, steel plants, and so on and so forth, and give them the full support of government, including all kinds of incentives so that they can make money, but leave the public utilities alone for the government to be able to protect its people. There will be a turnaround in economic policy from service economy to the producer economy, because once these industries, the basic industries, start to get moving, the support industries will follow through, and our need to export our people to warring areas of the world will be less and less, because they will be able to get the kind of employment that they look for here in the Philippines. Why? Because we have moved towards a producer economy. That is theory, but it is a sound theory. No? You have to be able to do this for yourselves.
Let me support the theory with history.
Yeah.
All right. Remember that the fastest growing economies after World War II, then I'm talking about Japan, Germany, South Korea, Taiwan, even Singapore and Botswana, which not many people are aware, grew faster than Singapore, did the following things. They did land reform, not the way the Philippines did it under Marcos, by the way, okay? The land reform they did was by taxing the land values. And they taxed the land from the top. They didn't tax indigenous peoples, by the way. But they taxed the people, they started from the top, taxing land values.
Yeah.
And because it was no longer profitable to keep land banks away from the market, they were forced to sell.
Yeah.
And when they were forced to sell the land, then it became easier for farmers, for workers who lived in apartments to start becoming more productive. And the other thing they also did was transform the supply chain into cooperative ventures.
Yeah.
And I mean a real cooperative, not the unfortunately I have to call it a masamang nayon and tulisan bayan under Marcos, but genuine co-ops that are based that follow the principles of openness and voluntarism, democratic control, economic participation, etc., which our own electric co-ops do not follow, which is why we're still backward. We're still in the dark ages.
Yeah.
Compared to the other countries. And we could apply the same thing also to telecommunications, which is still held by cartels.
Yeah. Well, we always blame foreign interests for putting us in this kind of situation. But actually, they would not have been able to put us in this level of existence if our leaders and our people refuse.
Well,
Either
refuse or are ignorant about it, because not this many Filipinos are aware of such histories.
Yes.
Let me ask everyone in this room, how many of you are aware of the histories of those countries that I mentioned?
Yun nga. Well, of course, we can learn through different ways and come up with the same conclusion. I'm just saying that our administration, of course, our presidents, we cannot say that they were all ignorant, but they should not have been president if they did not know. And if they knew that they were selling out the country, then they should be the first one to volunteer themselves for execution. No?
Well, sometimes the ignorance is caused by blindness of the gains. Not just of themselves, but of their friends and families. You see, that is a problem. The gains can be very blinding.
That's right.
And so, it's not, I wouldn't say their ignorance was out of incompetence, but it was out of, what's the objective? I have to recover my money that I spent for my campaign. I have to reward my campaign contributors. I have to
Yeah.
I have to reward. I have to treat as largesse official positions
Yeah,
as if they were spoils of war.
nandiyan na tayo. I mean, there will be people thinking along those lines all the time. No? If I'm gonna spend this, how am I gonna get it back? No? But the other thing that you might have said, that because of ignorance, education has played a major part of this. There was a time in our in our era, no, there was a time in the 60s, no, that we already started to feel that there was a change that is going to be made. No. We were in the period of fixed exchange rates, and that was our economic order. Soon after, by the early 70s, this was transformed into a floating exchange rate. Now, at that time, we were in college, in school, and personally, I noticed a major campaign against protectionism, as if though it was a sin or a bad word or something that comes from hell. No?
Well, they say the same thing about
Protectionism is
free
bad.
trade.
Huh?
They treat free trade as something that comes from hell as well. So
we
we have to understand.
At that time, Jeff, I remember that free trade was the answer to all of our problems. That's
Yeah,
what
but
you're saying.
it's been hijacked, unfortunately.
Well, that's the reason that what had happened is we followed, and our educational system has been destroyed in this way, so that we were misled into thinking along these lines. That's why our next generation, this generation of econoquacks, no, are following that ideology, of liberal economics, no? Free trade, no? Laissez-faire, government must not interfere, no? And yet we know that we set up a government in order to protect the people's interests, no? But these laissez-faire people, the Benjoknos now that we have here, they would rather that the government does not interfere and allow the free trade principles, as they call it, to waylay the people that cannot survive. No? Ang ganyan ng kanilang mentality. Wait, before we continue, Jeff, I'd like to greet some of my friends, I think, that have come in. We have Mr. Nonoy Feria also here, and we have Gary Salcedo. I don't know who else is here. Well, just in case, Gary, in case you want to make a comment, just raise your hand. We have also Connie
Blanco.
Connie Blanco here.
Yeah.
Good
And of
evening,
course, Johnny Bencosa.
just raise your hand, and we will and you join in the conversation. Kung gusto nyo magbigay ng inyong mga ideas, solusyon, huwag kayong matakot, maski na even if it is contrary to what we are saying, no? Let us have a free exchange of ideas, no? Because I assume that all of us are here looking for a way for our country to survive, no? So that is our common goal. If that is the direction, and we have different ways and ideas that might be the way, then let us share them. No? And all you know, maybe whoever is listening might one day become the leader of his nation and be able to implement it. So magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. No? Yeah, Johnny, would you like to say something? Johnny Ventosa? You want to say something, Johnny? Okay. Ano yun, Cathy?
Anyway, Sir Butch, no? Gusto ko lang din na batiin yung ating mga tagapanood. Si Engineer Lemmy nga pala, Professor Butch, tayo rin ay kanyang binabate. Of course, ang kanyang may bahay na si Tita Carmen. At yung lahat ng ating mga from the Save the Nation movement, Professor Butch, no? Sila Christopher ay nakatunghay din sa atin. Anyway, Sir Butch, ang bali po kasi ngayon, may binabanggit po kasi ngayon na yung pagsiklab, ika nga ng tinatawag po natin na hindi pagsiklab, kundi yung napipinto na mga brownouts dahil nga po sa mga kakulangan ng sinasabi nila na po-produce nating energy, no? Para po masustain yung pangangailangan po ng ating bansa. Ano po bang masasabi niyo dito? At grabe rin po ngayon ang mga paninirang ginagawa nila kaugnay dito sa paggamit ng nuclear power. Professor?
Well, obviously, buti na sabi mo yung nuclear power, dapat noon pa natin na paandar yan. Pero ang nakakalungkot, alam mo bakit tayo palagi nagkaka-brownouts? Kasi nung minsan, may kausap akong undersecretary ng energy. Tinanong ko sa kanila, paano nyo ba pinaplano ito? Ano ba yung leeway nyo? Dahil pataas ang pangangailangan natin sa energy, ilang porsyento ba ang dinadagdag niyo every year na nasa programa ninyo? Ang sabi niya, kulang-kulang daw sa 6%. Halos matumba ako sa aking silya nung sinabi na yun. Itong mga taong to na nagdadagdag ng ganyan 6%, ang iniisip lang nila yung demand ng ating mga mamamayan sa kanilang mga bahay. Wala silang iniisip na demand coming from industry. Yung mga manufacturing, dahil wala tayong manufacturing. Ang dapat natin mapaghandaan, yung total amount of available power to the people and to the businesses must be at the very least 20 to 30% higher than what the present demand is. No? Ibig sabihin, pag tumaas ng konti ang demand, kayang-kayang bigayan. Ang problema, halos 90% ng ating kuryente ay nanggagaling sa langis. No? Yan ang ginawa ni Cory, ni Ramos at ni Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Diyan tayo sa kanya pag tumataas ang halaga ng langis, no? Nahihirapan ngayon tayong magpataas ng supply. Sabi natin, nasabi mo na nuclear, noon pa yan. Pero bagamat noon pa dapat natin inumpisahan yan, anong tawag doon? Maski huli ngayon ay dapat gawin pa rin. Diba? May kasabihan tayo sa
huli man daw at magaling.
At least, no, gawin na natin. Ngayon, ang ating Pangulo, nako, minahal siya ng tao nung nagbigay siya ng deklarasyon na papaandarin na yung nuclear power plant. No? Tapos nung naging presidente siya, tameme na. Anong nangyari? No? Tameme na siya. Bakit? Kasi may mga powerful oligarchy. Yung kanyang mga business advisor na si Aboitiz, yung mga Ayalas, mga Aboitiz, Ayala, saka lahat pa nandyan sa negosyong kuryente, ayaw ipaandar yung Bataan Nuclear Power Plant dahil hindi nila pag-aari ng gobyerno yan. At pag pinaandar ng gobyerno yan, kakayanin yan maglabas ng kuryente na higit na mas mababa sa sinisingil nila at hihilain pababa ang presyo ng kuryente natin. Yan ang ayaw ng mga oligarko. Ngayon, sino ba ang advisor niya sa negosyo? Di Aboitiz, si Mr. Sabin Aboitiz, no? At marami pang, sino ba yan si Lotilla sa Department of Energy? Tao din ni Aboitiz yan. Sino ba itong nasa Public Works? Tao din ni Aboitiz yan. Pinaligiran na tayo ng mga Aboitiz. Sila nang may-ari sa Pilipinas. Mr. President, bakit mo naman pinapabayaan ganito ang mangyayari sa Pilipinas? Kanya tameme na, wala nang sinasabing presidente tungkol sa nuclear power plant. Ang Bangladesh, nakahanda na, tatapusin na nila 2 nuclear power plant. Bangladesh, alam mo ba dumating dito yung kanilang vice president, ang binibenta sa atin, gamot. Ang sabi nila, mas mura pa daw sila kisa sa India. Bumibili na tayo sa India ng mga gamot kasi mas mura sila sa mga big pharma. Pero meron pa rin na ipapasok ang big pharma sa atin. Tayo Pilipinas, tinatawanan natin ng Bangladesh, iniiwan na tayo . Bakit? Alam mo, mga oligarko sa kanila hindi mabubuhay. Ang mga oligarko dito sa atin, binuhay natin. Bakit? Kasi meron tayong public-private partnership. Sino yung private na partner nila? Ang oligarko. Sino yung public? Yung mga nakaupo na opisyal ng gobyerno. Yun ang partner nila. Hindi taong bayan. Yan ang nangyayari sa atin. Talagang tataas at tataas ang halaga ng ating skala. At wala tayong kakayanan. Itong mga benjoknong na ito, magbibigay sila ng salita na ang sabi nila, agricultural production is a sunset industry, sabi ni Jokno. Huwag na tayong managinip na kaya natin pakainin ng ating populasyon. Huwag na tayong papasok sa productive mode. Importin na lang natin lahat yan, no? At marami naman nagbebenta ng kanilang ng ating mga kakailanganin na mas mura kaysa sa tayo ang gagawa. Hindi tayo makakagawa ng bigas, ng palay, bigas, sabi ni Jokno, dahil mahal ang fertilizer. Embes na sabihin ni Jokno, mahal ang fertilizer, gumawa tayo ng programa na tayo ang gagawa ng fertilizer, mas gusto niya mag-angkat na lang tayo ng bigas. Hindi ba yun ang mamatay ang mga magsasaka? Hindi na baling mamatay ang ating kakayanin para pakainin ng sarili natin, mga tao. A country which cannot feed its own people cannot call itself a nation. You're talking of democracy bullshit. Democracy, we are mired in poverty. We have allowed ourselves to be strangled by oligarchic rule. And many treasonous government officials have allowed this. And the sad part about this is many ignorant people don't know that this has been done to us and continue to believe that every time we change presidents, we will be able to live better. You cannot live better if the program and the policy is the same. And they have not changed ever since Corazon Aquino took over. This is what has happened to us. And I'm glad, of course, that more and more and more of our people are starting to wake up to this reality. Because after all, we are all senior citizens. I don't know how long we still have. I hope our youth will finally realize that this has to be stopped. Or else, if we don't do anything, if we don't talk about it, if we don't call for a change, then we are accessories to the crime.
Anyway, Sir Butch, may mga comments si Sir Geoffrey. Maganda siguro itanong niya na diretso po sa inyo.
Sige,
Sir
okay. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Wait po i-ano ko lang siya. Unmute ko lang. Okay.
Ayaw mong pasalita.
Okay na po.
Okay.
Sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
loud and clear.
Okay, good evening again. Yeah, I've been writing the comments as Butch spoke because we also have to, I will dare say that if Marcos offers to privatize the Bataan nuclear power plant, mas mabalis pa sa alas 4, they'll open it. Therefore, is that the way we would want to is that the way we'd like to go? That's why I'd rather we really pursue something similar to the antitrust policies at the turn of the 20th century, where monopolies were forced to be broken up by forcing a wider public ownership of such enterprises like the railroads. The railroads used to be, in the US, used to be monopolized by just a few companies and even a few families. But because in the public interest, they had to be public utilities and open to a larger public ownership. Those who controlled it were diluted. The public had greater participation in the general meetings, stockholders meetings, and they succeeded in dismantling the monopolies, not just of the railroads, by the way, but also of banks, of the financial system. Mm-hmm. And sadly enough, and cleverly enough, the oligarchs started making their moves by forming a Federal Reserve system, banking system, that was to be owned by banks, capitalized by banks, but seeming benevolent, will be governed by the government based on a board of governors that the president will appoint. But where do the nominees come from? From the banks themselves. So hawak pa rin nila.
Tama.
So we really, I'd say you were mentioning that there is a 6% deficit. There is actually a systems loss that goes as high as 20% at times, which means that the shortage is due to inefficiency. If we were to cover up that inefficiency, there would be no shortages. And if the capital were constantly pumped in by our own patronage of the services, we would have enough money to naturally expand the capacity, whatever the source, whether it's nuclear or even coal, whatever would be needed. So it's really, in the end, we have got to iron out the market chain. And my comment also on protectionism, we shouldn't go between in either two extremes. If you go the extreme of Japan, which closed its trade gates for 250 years, when they reopened, they were still in the medieval era, while the United States and the West had steel ships. And it only when they actively participated in trade, which the Filipinos can do, have an edge right now and can do because of our OFWs. We can actually become Japan and China if we properly play our cards right. Our cartels have been ruling us from land ownership to capital ownership. Our stock market is the smallest in Southeast Asia, even if it is one of the oldest, because it's still held by a few families, particularly the Cayutos. So it won't grow because they'll say, we'll protect our interests first before that of the Filipinos. And if we want the Filipinos' help, we'll simply appeal to their sense of nationalism. Filipino first. But we're first in line, which is what they're actually saying. So I do agree, Butch, with your prognosis that our economy is held by cartels, by oligarchs, by market bullies. There is no sense of equality in rights and our dignity. That's what disappoints me about Philippine society. With power becomes a passport to privilege rather than a contract to duty, an obligation. It becomes a stepping stone to ambition rather than public service. Kailangan natin baguhin ang pananaw natin. And if the youth will not pursue these reforms for themselves, I'll tell you, they'll have a harder life than our generation had.
Of course, sure. For sure.
They'll have to work harder.
Yeah.
So they have to pursue the reform now, or else it will get worse.
That's right. I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, and well, this is the signs of the times, and if we input the developments, the geopolitical developments right now into what is happening, you will see the necessity to make a move is to make a move right away is much more imperative. No? We do not have time. We are not saying that if we follow what we are suggesting, that overnight things will look better. But what is important is we are able to make our country face the right direction so that when things become more in conflict with survival, economic survival, our capability to sustain life will be there. No? If we put ourselves completely dependent on importing our food and our needs, and things turn the way we are expecting them to turn in the near future, eh wala na tayo. Kasi even those that we are importing from no longer have the capability to export to us. They will most probably curtail their exports and limit them in such a way that they save it for their people. Because magulo na eh. Nagkakagera na eh. No? Ba't ka pa nakikipagnegosyo, nagkakagera na? Ipunin mo na yung mga pagkain mo, mga resources mo, mga minerals mo. They will no longer be available to us. That's the stupidity of the ideas coming from the Benjoknos, the Salceda, and all of those people that want to relegate our country into a trading outpost. Gusto nila import, tapos kung tapos na export mo yung sobra. Gusto nila mag-middleman na lang ang Pilipinas. Yung sama-sama ng ganyang klaseng policy. Because they know that it means sacrificing lives of a lot of Filipino people. We have to move towards the direction and the kind of thinking. Well, Jeffrey has very good and sound suggestions. Many people here, I'm sure, who are quiet, like Gary Salcedo and Nonoy Feria and whoever else is there, will have the same kind of apprehensions, no? And can only make the same conclusions that we have. They will see the absurdity of continuing to make us a service economy, a country of nurses and caregivers and call center operators. Forget about producing food. Forget about the agro-industrial development. Forget about science-driven and infrastructure-based economic development. Forget those. Trading post na lang tayo. Kaya sabi ko, itong mga ito, kung alam nila, maliciously, yan sila Benjok, Salceda, et al., if they know exactly that what they're calling for is to allow more and more people, Filipino people, to die of poverty, if they know exactly that it will depopulate the Philippines, then they should be shot for treason, going against national interest. The worst calamity that a country can have and a people may have is a murderous economic program, one that is designed to enhance poverty, promote starvation, and result in depopulation. This kind of program is worse than a pandemic. At least with things like COVID or flu or swine flu or whatever it is, that we have the natural biological capability to fight disease. But when you create an economic program to enhance poverty, to destroy the capability to survive, and do it purposely, then you are much worse than the people who were genocidal like Hitler. And I have a feeling the mentality of these people is precisely that. Because every time Jokno comes up with an economic program, whether it is a 5-point economic program or a 10-point economic program, among his initial declarations is we have to have an efficient population control system. Foremost in his mind is that we are overpopulated and we've got to do something about it. The same thing goes for the others. Just look into what these people have been doing for the past 40 years. They're the very same people that destroyed our capability to produce. And they're the very same people, by the way, not just the oligarchs, who are actually against the nuclear plant, nuclear power being resuscitated. Ayaw nila yan. Itong nangyayari sa atin. Any more comments from our friends? Itos, you want to say something? Yeah, Johnny Ventosa, go ahead. Johnny, what happened to our admin? There, go ahead.
Yeah. You were talking earlier that the Supreme Court demanded that 2 billion be paid by the oligarchs.
Yes.
Underwater.
Yes.
Do you expect them to do that? Anyway,
that's the next
but
question.
I'm really trying to figure it out. I was figuring this out. Here we are trying to fight the oligarchy, but we don't know how really big they are. I mean, they are part of the elite mafia. I'm sorry to say so, but they are very much a part of it. And we will never be able to do anything about it. Something drastic has to happen. Something very drastic has to happen. But we can, the government will never do anything about that. Never. We're the most corrupt government in the world. I'm sorry, I have to say all this. But this is how I feel. I mean, you and Joffre and so many others, I understand where we're coming from, but It's almost like we're facing a blank wall. And I think we have to face this. I don't know. I think it's time for the people to really wake up and really go out in the streets, and it's happening all over the world. We're the only ones who are so complacently adoring this mafia. I don't know. I think we're not informed. The general public is not informed of what's really going on around the world. They're just looking at our little country as if we were the greatest country in the world. They don't know that we're being eaten up little by little by little. I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm the negative aspect of it all.
you're correct, Jan. It's really very frustrating. Yeah. And it really brings us all the way to the very end of our wits then, to the point where we want to do violence against these culprits that have taken over our country. And then for our people to go to the streets. I don't know what had happened to the Filipino people. They are maybe, what do you call this, rally weary or something. What do you call this, demonstration, that you're so tired of it, no? Because they have been demonstrating and rallying for the past 40 years and then achieving nothing, no? And then, sasabihin nila, pare-pareho na lang. That is the way the people say. Pare-pareho na lang sila, maski sinong ilagay dyan, ganyan din ang mangyayari.
Yes.
Okay. Ito nga, ang sinasabi natin, hindi sa pagpapalit ng presidente ang importante, dapat pagpapalit ng patakaran. Kasi yung patakaran, iyon ang hindi napapalitan. No? The same groups of people. Yan mga benjok, no? Ever since Corazon Aquino yan. Sila Solita Monsod. Pare-pareho ang thinking ng mga yan. The same plans, the same ideas to convert our country from a producer mode into a service economy. Yan, pareho yan. No? And then just rely on exporting your people because you cannot provide jobs for them here. That's the situation. And they have taken control of the media. And so that us people are just considered like Don Quixotes or crying in the wilderness and so on and so forth. But how many times over this number of years have we faced this kind of frustration? We fought for the opening of the nuclear power plant ever since middle of 1990s. We already brought out to the people the damage that Fidel Ramos was going to do by instituting the EPIRA law, and we went through that, and Gloria Macapagal fully implemented the EPIRA law. We are fighting against this, but to no avail. Every time there was an election, people sell their future for 500 pesos. No? But again, you do it. No? And everybody, both in the Congress and the Senate, why is it, for example, we talk about this, you and I, and we talk about the oligarchy, but have you hired anybody from the Senate stand up and indict the oligarchs for doing what they have been doing? No one. The president before, what's his name? I forgot, Duterte. Minura niya ng minura yung mga yan. The mother of all corruption, sabi niya, pushed by these oligarchs. What happened? He sold out. Within a matter of 2 months after 2 or 3 months after he cursed them, he was already apologizing to them. Are they that powerful? Are they more powerful than 110?
Yes, I think they are.
But
I
100 million people, how can 100 million people surrender to this 9 or 10 people, 10 corporations?
It's more than millions. It's billions of people around the world that have been hijacked by this corporation. And really, I mean, it's almost too big a picture to deny, to really deny this. But I mean, they are powerful. They are extremely powerful. They are not just alone here in the Philippines. It's not just localized. They're part of a syndicate.
Well,
World syndicate. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong.
oh no, you're not. Of course they're powerful. The evil becomes powerful, di ba? All the time. And the ones that are the do-gooders are normally the minority or the weak ones. But the more principled ones are the ones that are the minority. Now this is, I suppose, the history of mankind. And there are times that the people have won. There are other times that the people lose temporarily. But in any case, I still believe that one day things are going to be all right. Well, as we speak now, and in different fora, there are people that listen, and then this idea somehow penetrate their consciousness. And one day, out of frustration or anger, they stand up and take on the leadership. It does not matter where they were able to get those ideas, but human beings can generate these ideas that we are talking about. Common sense will generate this. Now, but does the person have the moral courage to do what is right? It all depends. Kasi once you get into power, parang nag-iiba ka. And this is what I'm afraid of with our president. You know, there was, let me digress a little, just to give an example of what I mean by our president. There is a folk tale in Indonesia about an ogre, a monster, that lived on top of a mountain. And every so often, he went down to this little village at the foot of the mountain. and would pillage them, steal their food, kill some of them, and then go back up to the mountain. And every time this happened, the villagers got together and said, let us get the best and the brightest and the bravest of our people to go up to fight this monster and kill him. So for that year, they vote for this person. And he goes up. After a while, some days pass. And this person does not come back. And this was happening every year. And then one day, again, somebody volunteered to be the one to kill the ogre. He says, I am the strongest and the bravest of our warriors here. I am going, he said. And then his older brother said, no, I am older than you. So I should be the one to go and kill the ogre. It is my privilege being the eldest in our family. So the younger brother must wait to wait. If I do not go down, he says, then you go and avenge me. So he does not go down in 10 days. So the younger brother goes up, following the footsteps of his older brother. And it was not difficult to find the monster because as soon as he gets up, the ogre was there confronting him. So what does he do? He gets his spear, the spear that is he made precisely to kill the ogre. And he throws his spear and hits the heart of the ogre. And the ogre falls dead. And he goes to the ogre to make sure that it was dead. As he leaned forward, the ogre's image transforms into his older brother. So we know the story. Everybody wants to be president. He will do the best he can for the country. But when he gets there, he becomes the ogre. Now, when will that chain or series be changed? That's up to us. Any other comments so far? If there's nothing, I'd like to talk about, well, the coming elections in the United States. Let me digress a bit. It's going to be something that everybody should be interested in. Though it is only a midterm election, I think it is a fight to the death. A fight to the death of the deep state or the death of those that want to uphold the principles of a sovereign nation state. It is well known to all of us that the last election in the United States was stolen from Donald Trump. We're familiar with it because the names used, like Malloch Brown and Smartmatic, were the same organizations that were used that were manipulating the results of elections here in the Philippines for some time. They have learned so much from us. As a matter of fact, our former Commission on Election Chairman, Bautista, was reported to have been in the United States as an advisor to the Democrats during that election, teaching them maybe the tricks that they made here in the Philippines. So as observers, we saw that there really was cheating, and that we were surprised and awed, actually, horrified, that a place like the United States the seat of freedom and democracy was going to experience something like this. That was shocking, to say the least, to many of us to experience it. Moreover, we saw that the judicial system in the United States, which was in large part being a credible institution, somehow reneged on their commitment to the people. Instead of hearing the allegations of fraud, decided to wash its hands and allow the different states to decide the outcome of the elections. Well, this put the United States in great turmoil, almost moving towards a civil war. And the institutions by which the U.S. have always been dependent on, like the Central Intelligence Agencies, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice, and several other connected agencies have now been mired with a lot of corruption, cheating, and fake news, wherein the whole public, not just the public in the US, the whole world was being misled into thinking that there indeed was a clean election. Now, ordinarily, I thought there would have been some sort of a move coming from the Donald Trump supporters, which were obviously in the millions, or maybe a right-thinking military who are still adhering to the principles by which they have sworn to. They would have intervened, and maybe through some sort of a constitutional coup, taken over and maybe have another set of elections. This didn't happen. We are now facing the midterm elections, and there is a fight for control of the lower house of the Senate and of the Senate and of the leadership of the different states among the 50 states in the United States. The anticipation is that the Reds or the Republicans are going to take over the elections and will win it. That is the expectation as it was in the year 2020. But as we have seen, the deep state is capable to exercise their audacity to control the elections and change the results of the elections and go against the will of the people. Now, the reason why I said we have to watch out and wait for the outcome is because will this finally put the United States on the brink of a civil war? The last civil war they had was during Abraham Lincoln. But in this case, Abraham Lincoln, at the Civil War, he won it, but he was assassinated by the same kind of people that are now wanting to take over the United States. The same kind of thinking. If the Democrats and deep state win, my personal opinion is that this will hasten the move towards a global nuclear war. And it is to our interest that, of course, we look for ways how not to allow this. If you have friends in the United States and relatives And if you are influential enough with your daughters and sons, please tell them, don't allow the deep state to take over the country. Because that will mean a major nuclear conflict that we will be facing in the near future. Of course, it's only my opinion, but unless anybody else has something else to say. Itos. You want to add something?
Yeah, with regards to, I wanted to comment on the earlier discussion on the privatization and what the Supreme Court had done. I understand that let me comment on that first. So I understand that the Supreme Court can only act on the case as it is presented to it. Therefore, the case, they determined that the Manila Water and Maynilad were overcharging customers and therefore have to pay the certain amount. But 2 billion pesos is nothing to these companies. It's equivalent to a slap on the wrist, in a sense. And it does not solve any problem. What we should be looking at is why they are still allowed to operate at all. The proof, the case actually tells us that just like what happened with the ABS-CBN, that they violated so many things in the agreement with government, and therefore Congress voted to not extend their franchise, and therefore they had to shut it down. What I don't understand is, yes, the Supreme Court does this. I guess it cannot act unilaterally and prevent tell Maynilad and Manila Water to cease operations and return it to the government. But at the very least, violating that franchise, that very agreement of the privatization, should in a moral Congress, should be cause for withdrawal of their franchise operation, at the very least. That's the comment that I have on that decision of the SC. So this is nothing to them. They will spread that payment out over how many years. They will still continue to operate, and they'll barely feel it. Okay, so that's what I see there. And then on the discussion of energy and the nuclear power, and again, you know where we stand on these things. It's the whole system of privatization that should be put on trial. It's the whole system of globalization, privatization, and liberalization that should be put on trial. And that's the policy that we have. You do not solve, the energy prices by working within the EPIRA. You have to take out the EPIRA. You have to take out the privatization. You have to take out everything. That's the only way to resolve it. Give it back to the government. And the government will have to, in its mandate, provide electricity and expand the services as is its mandate. With privatization, yung may-ari ng mga kumpanyang electricity tsaka tubig, wala naman tayong habol sa kanila eh. 'Di ba? Because that's what we gave them. That's what we allowed them in. So there has to be, again, going back to the blueprint of how we're going to solve the energy crisis in the country and other things. By the way, yung wala na po si Mr. Valdes, no? Pero I would like to, I would have liked to comment that, everywhere that free trade was imposed on any country, you will see an increase in poverty, crime, and hunger. Anywhere that British free trade was implemented, and I'm paraphrasing from Henry Carey in the 1830s. So he was saying that anything that British free trade, results in poverty and inequality and loss of jobs and hunger and disease and sickness. And until today, that's what's happening to every country that's chosen to go the route of free trade. Protectionism is not a bad word. Protectionism is protecting the interests of your own people, as simple as that. All right, so I wanted to comment on that now. And there are many examples of that, from Franklin Roosevelt to Lincoln to everywhere else. All right, so that's what I would like to comment on. The other thing, the last part of that is that my chairman commented on the elections in the U.S. It is very important, and it's being seen. It is not the Republicans versus the Democrats. It is really a battle of the United States of America versus the deep state. That's what it really is. Now, people don't like to see that. They think it's a conspiracy theory, but you have to look at what these guys stand for. In fact, hindi na nila tinatago eh. Hindi na nila tinatago yung kanilang mga gustong mangyari. Nila Biden, nila yung mga Democrats. I'd like to give an example lang, which I think encapsulates the whole thinking that these guys have. There is this politician, I think she's running in Georgia for the governor yata. Her name is Stacey Abrams. Alam mo sabi niya, abortions will help inflation. Yan ang belief niya. And yan ang sinabi niya, parang we should have more abortion to help inflation. So, the inflation caused by Biden, and since President Biden came into office, and the increased inflation, the runaway hyperinflation na nga na nangyayari sa Amerika. Sabi niya, you have to have more abortions daw. And denial of that will not help the economy daw. Ganon pag-iisip ng mga to. Now, so many things are happening po sa US na hindi po natin nababalitaan sa mainstream media. But the war is continuing against the deep state nga. And this election is very, very important. 2 weeks out from the midterms, and so far lahat ng tumatakbong under Republican are winning in all the polls against the Democrats. So they will have to do another massive round of cheating to retain. And if that happens, if they force it and they insist, talagang magkakagulo, and it does not benefit the rest of the world. But there's many positive signs around the world na nangyayari ngayon. Kailangan po we see this as one whole connected process. So that's for another discussion lang po. So yes, yung election ng US is very, very important for everybody to see, and it will determine the future of all countries. Pasensya na, but the US is the determinant of all countries and the future of all countries, including China and Russia. Yun lang po.
Itos, what has Donald Trump recently said in any of his rallies that he came out? What was the latest?
Well, the latest, he's in Texas yata now, no? So again, it's a massive gathering. Alam naman sa Texas, yung governor dyan, I forget his name, but he is a very Trump supporter yan. Same with Florida, kay DeSantis. And so, Donald Trump is like barnstorming for all the candidates. Now, he is not supporting every single Republican candidate kasi may tinatawag siyang mga rhino, Republican in name only. So, hindi lahat ng mga kandidato sinusuportahan niya. Ang sinusuportahan niya, yung parang, I guess the only way to put it is a Trump Republican. So, his latest, is more of the same. He would be talking about yung inflation, talking about Biden and all of the failures, which is to be expected kasi election na. There are other things he would be talking about na it doesn't seem as important, but for those who are sort of locked in with the Patriots network, so to speak, very significant yung mga pronouncements niya. Nothing on the surface earth-shaking, pero importante. There are many things happening, very important things, but Trump mismo hasn't announced that. The other announcement is, and we're again risking a little bit of a flag from siguro our friends in YouTube, no, is that they yung vaccines, they're allowing the vaccines to be part of the vaccine schedule for all infants in the US already. So what it means is that they cannot be held liable na kasi FDA, CDC approved it unanimously that these vaccines are going to be part of all the infant vaccine schedules already. Sabi lang ni DeSantis that he will not force it. Kung ayaw niyong kunin na vaccine, hindi mandated yan. But that's the war. So they're pushing this and the other side is pushing back. So yun lang po. That's it, Chairman.
Yeah. Well, are there any other comments so far? Cathy?
Yes, sir. Meron pong tumataas ng kamay si Coco Maximo. Coco?
Yes.
You can go ahead, Coco.
Unmute mo siya, oh.
Okay po.
Yes, Coco, go ahead.
Hi. Good evening, Sir Butch.
Yes.
Napag-usapan kasi yung tungkol sa brink of war between China and America over Taiwan, di ba?
Yes.
Tapos pa yan in the context of the Russian-Ukraine war na hindi natin alam pero pinagdadasal natin sana hindi matuloy na maging nuclear war or maging world war.
Right.
Siguro ang konsolasyon ko na lang na nakikita ko sa ngayon is besides yung sa alam ng karamihan na tuwing nagwa-war game simulations ang US is natatalo sila lagi sa China is mukhang walang capability ang US ngayon to prosecute a war with China kasi alam nating 'di ba? Naghihirap sila ngayon sa supply nila sa langis.
Right.
Sobrang patuloy lang ang pagtaas ng presyo ng langis sa kanila. Tapos election pa. The Democrats cannot afford to 'di ba? Do anything that will make them lose the elections. Kung i-push nila yung gerang yan, paano nila itutuloy yan in the long term kung wala silang pagkukunan ng langis? Ngayon, inuubos na nila yung nila. Si Biden, halos inuubos na niya yung strategic oil reserves nila. So, hindi ko makita kung paano nila realistically na gagawin yun Kumbaga yun, that gives me hope na baka hindi matuloy kung magtuloy-tuloy yan. Lalo na ngayon, 'di ba? Ang mga bansa na allies nila dati, nagto-turn away na sa kanila, katulad ng ano, 'di ba? Saudi Arabia
Right.
na nabalita, si Biden pala nakiusap sa mga Arabians na wag muna silang magtaas ng presyo ng langis until after the elections.
Yeah.
Nakakatawa isipin, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Tapos ngayon tinabla pa sila ng Saudi kasi nga kumampi sila sa Russia, 'di ba?
Right.
Nagkasundo sila na ikat ang production ng oil. So yun, para siguro yun lang comment ko.
Okay.
Given all of this that's happening,
Yes.
so yun lang.
Opo, thank you very much. Dito sa comment mo, which was very a good observation, no? But opinion ko lang to, Coco, na ang operating word na sinabi mo, long term, no? How can they go to war on a long-term basis? Ako din, ang feeling ko, walang kakayanan ang US to go long-term. Precisely, which makes it more, which creates more apprehension on my part, on our part, because if you don't have the capacity to go on long-term, but you have the weaponry, to go on a short-term war, which is nuclear. It might force the United States precisely to go on a nuclear war, rather than invasion or anything about tanks and so on and so forth. Kasi wala na nga silang capability dyan, wala pala silang langis, and wala naman silang resources anymore to be able to sustain a massive army deployment of war in different fronts. Doon ako natatakot po. Dahil sigurado ang Amerika, binibilang nila yung kanilang nuclear weapons. At sa kanilang paningin, ang nuclear weapons nila, lamang sila kaysa sa China. Mas marami ng pera ang China, mas magaling banda ngayon, mas magaling ng teknolohiya. Pero sa dami ng nuclear weapons, tsaka yung delivery systems, ay ang pinakamarami talaga ang Amerika. Kailangan ipagsama mo pa ang nuclear weapons ng nuclear warheads ng China tsaka ng Russia, ipagsama mo yon, medyo lamang pa ng konti ang bansang Amerika. Diyan siguro sila nag-iisip. Dahil hindi nila kakayanin matagalan. Tama ka dyan. Pero yan ang kinakatakutan natin. Ang isa pang nakakatakot, tama ka dyan, itong Taiwan, China, US, tatandaan nyo, pag diyan Taiwan, China, tapos US, kasama tayo dyan. Kasi yung mga barko na pagdigmaan ng Amerikano, nakaparada dito sa atin. Nandyan sila sa Subic, nandyan sila sa iba-ibang mga lugar ng Pilipinas. Nandyan sa may Palawan, nakaparada dyan. At nakatutok yung kanilang mga missile sa China. Kanya, ang sinasabi natin, pag nagkaroon ng gulo dyan sa Taiwan, yung mga vapor, hindi naman sila magkukumpulan sa Taiwan. Nandito sila sa Pilipinas. Kanya tayo ang tatamaan pag nagkaroon ng gera. At sinasabi na sila, paulit-ulit na sinasabi sa atin dito ng mga China, ng mga San China. Do not allow yourselves to be a military base of the United States. Noong pa yan, I remember 2011, 2012, no? Nung nag-umpisa sila dito sa Asia Pivot, no? Yan na ang sinasabi natin. Nagbibigay na ng babala ang China. Now they're here. Si Noynoy, pinayagan niyang gamitin ang lahat ng mga bases natin at mga ports natin at airports ng Pilipinas. Anytime they want to, they can use our airports and ports. Si Noynoy, pumayag din dito sa EDCA. So dito sa EDCA, ang ating balita, dahil ayaw nilang i-anunsyo sa buong Pilipinas, may 5 lugar na Philippine military base na nandun sa loob ng Philippine military base ang US installation. Anong installation ang ilalagay mo dyan? Hindi ba nuclear missiles? Ngayon, kaya ba natin silang tanggalin sa Pilipinas? Hindi nga. Pero kung ako si President Marcos, isisiwalat ko to sa buong mundo, tsaka sa buong Pilipinas, na hindi sila welcome dito sa Pilipinas. Hindi sila welcome dito na meron silang mga nuclear weapons. Yan dapat ang isiwalat niya. Ngayon, kaya ba natin tanggalin? Sabihin na natin hindi. Pero the world knows that they are here and they are not welcome and that we are wanting to get them out.
Correct.
Yun lang.
Sagot.
Yes.
Umiinit ang ating usapan at may mga pumapasok pa sa ating mga kasama dito sa Zoom. Pero 7 minuto na lamang po ang nalalabi bago tayo tuluyang maghawi ng ating tabing, Professor Butch. Pero gusto ko lang i-recognize ang lahat po ng mga kasama natin dito sa Zoom ngayon, si Connie Blanco, si Johnny Ventosa, Geoffrey Balse, of course si Carlos Valdes, Gary Salcedo, Felicissimo Feria, Carlo Iway, Coco Maximo. At syempre maraming salamat sa ating technician mula sa DZXL, sa ating himpilan po sa radyo, kay Ray Alvesa. At syempre sa ating technical staff din dyan sa Katipunan Channel, Saver Archivido at Roxanne Suba. Professor, you can go ahead para sa ating meron yata tayong mga messages para mabasa pa natin ang ilan.
Okay.
Oo. Okay. Nako, hindi ko masyado nababasa to. Wait lang Hindi ko masyado nababasa. Wait lang. Hanapin ko yung... Dali lang guys. Nako. Dahil maliit siya, hindi ko siya mabasa. Wait lang.
Ay, nako.
Maliit Of course, sige. Tignan natin itong sabi ni Javier Valdes. Mabuhay kayo, Kuya Butch and Itos. At mula kay Araceli o Anacelia ba to? Anacella Cat Watson. Long time you here. Sabi niya ganon. I don't think so. Irene, Angregi Araneta spotted at Queen's funeral. Movie now, Liza Araneta had an issue from Attorney Vic Rodriguez. What the relation of the issue of the Rodriguez Fund? Yan. And of course, if I don't, meron pang issue of Attorney Vic Rodriguez, what the relation of the issues of the Rodriguez Fund. and Rodriguez Fund or fund transfer from Vatican to the 7th floor of Twin Tower, considering the Araneta known as oligarch, and normally partnered with the priest like that of Recoletos in Bacolod and all. My speculation, but do you research? Ayan. Do you research? At mula kay Philip Doliente, yan, meron lang siya bumate. May puso pa talaga si Philip eh. Maraming salamat, Philip. And of course, kay Cesar Soberano. Kahit ilan siguro, kahit alam siguro ni PBBM ang Article 12, Section 17 to 18 ay hindi niya kayang ipatupad. It appears now that Senator Amy Marcos has the both on matters concerning national survival. At mula kay CJ Lahora Villaluz, watching from Cainta, Rizal. Shout out po sa mga classmate and teachers ko po. Hi Prof. Butch. Last na long time na see. How are you? Bakit wala na po kayong program sa Talakayang Bayan at Sulong Pilipinas ni RJ Avellana? Sir Butch, baka gusto mong sumagot sa comment na yon.
Panoorin niyo po yung bago namin programa every Saturday, 5 o'clock. Ang tawag namin Crossfire. Kasama ko po dito si Ms. Rita Gadi tsaka si Ado Paglinawan. No. Panoorin niyo po, masisiyahan kayo.
And
Saturday, 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay. At isa pang mga comment mula kay Andres Sakay Alfloro. Yun. Mabuhay po kayo, Sir Butch. Salamat sa inyong sharing ng kaalaman sa ating lipunan. At mula kay Luis Gerald, maraming salamat sa mga ginagawa mo, Luis. Good evening po sa inyo, Magamang Butch at Itos Valdes, and to Miss Cathy Cruz also. Yan. Maraming salamat talaga. At mula kay Edna Lopez ng Sakay. A blessed Sunday evening po, Sir Butch, watching from Tokyo. After the franchise of ABS rejected, months later, they are partnering to a religious network to air program there through Black Time Agreement. Nako, oo nga. At mula kay Gary Chua, sabi niya, good evening ka, Butch, and everyone. Magising na sana mga lawmakers dito para maibalik ang sigla ng local manufacturers dito at unahin na ibaba ang kuryente at tubig. Si Senator Jinggoy parang nagising na movie producers na punan niya bakit panay Korean teleserye na ang mga director puro politics. Isip nila kaya di nakasabay. Pasensya na, medyo maliit yung dahil cellphone lang ang aking gamit. But anyway, meron pa ba tayong parting message na lang, 1 minuto na lang, Professor Butch, maraming pong salamat.
Okay, well, papasalamat din ako sa mga na sumama sa atin dito, maski na hindi kayo nagpahiwatig ng mga opinion ninyo, alam ko po nandiyan kayo. No? So, sa ngalan po ng ating mga katipon dito sa Ating Katipunan at sa magagaling na staff ng DCXL Radio Mo Nationwide, kami po ay pansamantalang nagpapaalam at nagpapasalamat na sinamahan niyo kami ngayon sa oras de peligro ng ating bayan at ng buong mundo dito po sa Ating Katipunan. Hanggang sa linggo po muli, Zoom ulit tayo, mga katipon, 7 to 9 p.m.
Bye everyone! Maraming salamat po sa Alon family, kay Brother Alan at saka kay Sister Virgie.
Cathy.
Yes, sir?
Hindi mo pinadala sa aking kailangan ko.
Oo nga, sir. Sir, may text ako sa inyo. Basahin mo, sir. On air pa tayo, sir.
Ay, nako.